Right, brilliant. Good morning, everyone. Again, thanks very much for joining us. We started a little bit late, so we're going to crack on as quickly as we can because we have to be done by 12:30 as well. Welcome once more to the conference. This time, our session is a really interesting one. We've got some fascinating women about to take the stage in a moment as well. And the whole idea of this session, is, the theme, as you might be able to see on there, is going to be that it is about breaking down barriers, women in leadership roles and how they got there. And actually, just having come out of the earlier session, we were talking about volunteering in the other room as well and inspiring people. And one of the points that was brought up was the inspirational role that women play when they get up to leadership roles. And that can help draw more people, make people believe in their own capabilities and their own abilities to achieve and not have that self-doubt that they wouldn't be able to reach those positions. And so I think we're going to come up with some really interesting topics over the next few minutes. So I'm not going to waste any more time. Just make sure your phones are on silent as well, please, if you could, so we don't get any interruptions. And don't forget, if you want to make any comments on Twitter, on social media, anyway, hashtag 2015 FIM conferences, because this is another session that is being streamed live around the world as well. So hopefully lots of people involved, and we may even get time. I'm not sure. We'll try and get time to have some questions coming in on social media as well. Let's start with our panellists. And as I said, we've got a really good selection of panellists to join us. First of all, I'd like to invite up onto stage the youngest member of our panel here this evening, current rider in the Moto 3 World Championship. First female rider to score points, actually, in Moto 3 since the change from the 125cc class. And has taken some great results over 3 years in the lightweight class of Grand Prix racing, and a real model, real example, I think, to lots of young girls, who particularly want to get involved in motorcycling. So please give a round of applause for Ana Carrasco. Thank you very much, Anna. Thanks for joining us up onto stage. I'd also now like to invite onto stage someone who we're going to get to know a little bit later on this weekend during the FIM Gala as well, because she's about to be installed as 2015's FIM Woman Legend. Basically, thanks to a career that spanned many years, particularly while she was a rally driver, motorcycle racer, speedboat as well. Took part, particularly famous for taking part in the Paris-Dakar throughout some of the first editions, early editions of that rally. She documented her own experiences as well with a book, A Girl in the Desert, and just really has been a huge part of that world in motorcycling as well. So if we could have a big round of applause as well, please, for Martine de Cortons, who's going to join us up on the stage, our FIM Women Legend for 2015. Thank you, Martine. Good to see you. Thank you very much. Great to see you. If you'd like to take a seat down next to Anna as well. Next up to join us on the stage is another very impressive woman. And that, again, we're talking about inspiring people, and I think we've got really a great selection of people who've made a difference here. It's going to be a woman who has been 12-time world and national land speed world record holder. She's a bit of an ambassador for women in sports. Also, in the business world, in the modern technological world as well. She's a director of Global Consumer Insights for Facebook as well. So maybe we'll get another side to this story as well. So if we could just welcome up onto stage as well, Erin Sills. Thank you very much, Erin. Thank you. Again, we talk about that we want to have people in inspiring leadership positions, and we want to have women who, again, show what is possible. And the next lady I'd like to invite up onto the stage is just one of those people, perhaps not inside the sporting world or in the motorcycle world as much as these three ladies on the stage, but she's the founder and CEO of Women's International Networking. It's an organization dedicated to women's leadership, organizational change, and inspiring others to create a world where diversity, business, society all flourish and thrive. So if we can invite up onto the stage Kristin Engvik. Thank you very much. Thank you, Kristin. Thanks for joining us. And finally, I'd like to invite up onto stage an old colleague of mine, actually, when I worked inside Dorna as well. So Dorna are the rights holders for the MotoGP World Championship, World Superbike, and also for the Spanish Championship as well. Amparo has been involved within the company since its founding, really, in 1992, working alongside Carmelo Espeleta, who's the CEO of Dorna, but throughout her career has developed her role through that, taken time out to have her own children, but has come back now and is the director of the FIM CEV, the Spanish Championship, but he's also the Junior World Championship now. So if you could welcome up onto the stage, Amparo Porto. So just a little bit idea of some of the themes that we want to touch, and I know we just had a really great session in the other side where we really got some nice debate going, people commenting on each other. So we're going to try and as much as we can hear how these women have got to the positions they're in, but I want to hear them share their own experiences, those kinds of things as well. What we're going to be looking to highlight perhaps is how these women have reached their position that they're in, obstacles that they've encountered along the way perhaps, some experiences they may have found, or the way things they've seen changing through their own experiences, and what obstacles there are, how we can overcome them, what needs to be improved, what still needs to be found, what still needs to be worked on. And perhaps, hopefully, we'll get some questions, some ideas from some of the delegates as well down in front of us. What are the importance of having women in these kinds of positions, and how it helps empower other women as well. So maybe I'll start on the far end with Ana. Ana, Ana will be speaking in Spanish as well, so I'll start with her. Hopefully you've got your translators already as well. English is on channel 1, and I think the other way around, Spanish is on channel 3 as well. So Ana, gracias por venir después de una temporada dura, larga, pero quiero empezar contigo, con tu carrera deportiva. Hasta ahora, todavía solo ha empezado, nada más ha empezado. Has tenido 3 años en el Mundial, pero antes también has estado en el Campeonato de España. Yo quiero saber un poco cómo tú has empezado, qué te ha hecho, qué te ha inspirado empezar a pensar, yo puedo ser piloto de motociclismo, y bueno, ¿qué has tenido que superar para llegar a donde estés hoy en el Campeonato del Mundo?
Bueno, hola a todos, antes que nada. Sí que empecé muy joven en el deporte. Cuando tenía 3 años prácticamente empecé a montar en moto. Mi padre le regaló una moto a mi hermana, que es un poco más mayor que yo, y bueno, a mí me encantaba verla, hasta que conseguí que me dejaran a mí también subirme a la moto. Al final llevo toda la vida dedicada a ello. A los 4 años hice mi primera carrera. Y desde ahí siempre he estado relacionada con este mundo, siempre he sabido que es a lo que me quiero dedicar. Y bueno, fui creciendo, pasando por diferentes campeonatos, diferentes categorías y creciendo como piloto. Al final necesitas a alguien que esté contigo, que te apoye mucho para poder aprender y evolucionar cada año y cada día. Así que bueno, fui creciendo mucho, muy rápido, y llegué al Campeonato de España con 14 años. Ahí todo se volvió un poco más profesional y es donde de verdad me di cuenta que podría ser un piloto profesional y que podía llegar al Campeonato del Mundo. Sí que tienes que adaptarte a muchas cosas, muchos cambios. Al ser tan joven tienes que aprender otro idioma, tienes que aprender a quedar bien con todo el mundo, intentar siempre atender bien a la prensa, atender bien a la gente, y esto siendo tan joven es muy complicado porque muchas veces por enfado, por las reacciones que tienes cuando termina una carrera y no te ha salido como quieres, es un poco complicado. Pero sí que todo esto me adapté bastante bien. En el Campeonato de España conseguí buenos resultados dentro de los medios que tenía, y bueno, pude dar el salto al Campeonato del Mundo, que al final es lo que he querido siempre. Cuando llegué ahí, llegué con un buen equipo, pude, a pesar de ser mi primer año, conseguir buenos resultados en varios circuitos. Y bueno, sí que he tenido bastantes dificultades a partir de ahí, sobre todo por el tema económico. Sí que es complicado encontrar el presupuesto porque, bueno, al final la moto es un deporte muy caro y que se necesita un buen apoyo. Así que, bueno, me ha costado, me he podido mantener en el Mundial durante 3 años, porque, sobre todo por el apoyo de Dorna, que me ha estado conmigo en los momentos más difíciles. Y bueno, Al final creo que puedo estar ahí, que necesito los medios y bueno, que necesito que haya gente que crea que una mujer puede ser campeona del mundo. Yo creo que puedo serlo y solo necesito que haya gente detrás que empuje y que me ayude a llegar donde tengo que llegar.
Gracias, Ana. Que sí, es una historia, bueno, de inspiración también de esto, porque yo siempre hablando contigo, yo sé que tú me dices que yo soy otro piloto, yo soy un piloto de motos, no soy una mujer, pero no se puede negar que eres mujer dentro de un mundo de hombres, ¿no? No se puede negar esto. ¿Esto te ha creado obstáculos? ¿Te ha creado, sabes, si tú has encontrado dificultades por ser mujer, esencialmente?
Bueno, está claro que sobre todo al principio no era una cosa muy normal de ver. Sí que en unos aspectos tengo ventajas y en otros tengo desventajas. Para mí en la pista todos somos iguales y no creo que haya ninguna diferencia, que ningún hombre pueda ir más rápido que yo. Al contrario, creo que cada uno utiliza las ventajas que tiene, sus características como piloto y que al final el resultado puede ser el mismo. Así que por ejemplo, el primer año cuando llegué al Mundial fue un poco más complicado, la gente no estaba acostumbrada a ver a una mujer, incluso mis compañeros de pista tampoco lo veían del todo bien, intentaban evitarme un poco, pero bueno, creo que después de 3 años esto ha cambiado. Ahora todo el mundo me ve como un piloto más, que al final lo que busco y lo que quiero, que todo el mundo crea que se puede estar, que una mujer puede estar al nivel de un hombre y que se puede conseguir muy buenos resultados en el Campeonato del Mundo.
Muchas gracias, Ana. I'm just going to move on to Martine as well. In your own experience, how did you start? How did you get involved in motorcycle riding? And obviously, you then decided to go on, take part in the Dakar and have a great career. But how did it first begin with you? Was it different to Anna, for example, in this Monir, who started at a very young age and perhaps I don't know whether she had more facilities. How was it for you, basically, starting and beginning to ride a motorcycle?
Well, on this point, it's been very different because I was probably 30 years old. Before that, I used to rally cars, like the Monte Carlo and all the international cars, rally cars. And one day, between two races, I had a little available time. My boyfriend at the time had a motorcycle. It was a Laverda. I don't know even if it's still there. And, well, I liked driving it. And so having this little spare time, I decided I would take my driving license. And that was all. And then I went on rallying cars, etc., etc. And one day, a friend of mine took me to watch an enduro. And I was there on the road, and the race crossed that road. And I saw sort of a demon, like throwing up mud, like a cloud of foam all around, just slowing down the time to have his card stamped, and setting up again in the roar of the engine. And suddenly I said, wow, this is for me. This is exactly what I want. Then I entered my first enduro not long after that, but I bought for that a trail motorbike, which was not exactly the good idea. I discovered that later, and I corrected. And I went on trying my best. I loved enduro, and I was trying my best and my best and my best. And, well, I was probably not the only one girl in those enduros. At that time, I'm talking you of the year 70. That's 75, precisely. But my little results and my determination took the ear of one of my car sponsors, Elf, and they decided to help me. and gave me enough money to cover my expenses, which was, at that time, which was enormous. And after that, in 78, Thierry Sabine created the Paris-Dakar. And once again, I said, this is for me. No hesitation. This is for me, but this is for me. And this was a kind of enduro of 13,000 kilometers. I couldn't even imagine that. And we were roughly 5 or 6 women entering the race, some of them in car. And the others who were on motorbike, racing motorbikes, there were motorbikes riders, but I mean everyday motorbikes rider, but no one with a race experience. So I was so scared. They were quite cool. They were cool, but I was scared, really. And well, I've been not scared until the end, but it went on and on and on, and I felt more and more comfortable. Racing was familiar to me, so no problem to take the start of a leg every morning, no problem. Adapting to the landscape, I should say, which is the desert. And having no GPS at that time, only the boussole, the thing that you put on your bike, and the north is not there on the bike, the north is there. It's difficult. If you really want the north, you have to put the bike aside, go 10 meters, then look at your boussole, and then you really have the north because of the metallic,
interference,
etc., etc. So that's it. And I should like, at this point, to pay a tribute to Thierry Sabine, the organizer, because in 1978, so every morning we had a briefing with the racers, the competitors, the service car drivers, everyone. And we had a meeting, and it every day finished by saying, listen, all of you, you have the road books, you know, papers with everything that you're supposed to find on your path. Those road books, I don't want to see one page after we pass. You do whatever you like, but I don't want one page thrown out of the windows of the cars. Okay, but what about the bikes? On the bike, you have your road book on a piece of wood on the tank, fuel tank, and you tear off one page, and what do? Just you put it in your jacket. And at the end of the day, your jacket is like this. So Thierry Sabine really was insensibility at that time.
Already thinking about it back then. Fascinating stuff, Martine. Thank you very much as well. Erin, move on to yourself as well. And already we've had a couple of inspirational stories. I think part of this conversation is going to be a little bit about that as well. But tell us about how you got into going on and riding at silly speeds.
Silly is in the eye of the beholder. I think, like my colleagues Anna and Martine here, it's interesting to hear how young you were when you started, because I grew up in an environment where, with my parents, I didn't grow up understanding that men did some things and women did other things, or boys did some things and girls did other things. It was just people did things, and that's the environment that I grew up in, and it might be the similar environment that my colleagues here grew up in, because I didn't think about whether I could or could not accomplish something. I just did it. And for me, entering motorcycling, and in particular land speed racing, it was the intersection of passion and opportunity. And I think I'm genetically predisposed to speed, because my father always had the fastest cars we could afford, which never were much. And my brother also has the speed gene. So there's some kind of genetic predisposition towards enjoying speed. And then you cross that with opportunity thanks to organizations like FIM and in America, the American Motorcyclists Association, who create events. And in my case, I was and still am a very passionate sport touring motorcycle rider. So just like many of us in the room here, I'm a sport touring rider. I have probably 250,000 miles in the last 15 years of riding. I ride quite a bit. When I discovered that there was a sport that facilitated speed and motorcycle riding, and that's the sport that is so little known among people outside of this room, called land speed motorcycle riding, I thought, just like Martine, well, that's for me. And thanks to Dennis Manning and an organization or a race that he began called the BUB International Motorcycle Speed Trials, he had something at the event called Run What You Brung. And that essentially was an opportunity for people to ride their own motorcycles at their own pace, go through a little bit of a safety inspection, ensure that you have proper leathers and gear and such, and take your own bike out. And I was there with my husband, actually boyfriend at the time, and we'd ridden there. I was on my Honda VFR, and he was on I think a BMW K1200S. And I entered my bike into Run What You Brung, and it instantly became a competition between the two of us. And one thing about land speed motorcycle racing is that men and women compete equally against one another. There aren't classes for men or classes for women. Rather, I'm trying to beat history, and I'm trying to be the fastest on a particular size and style of motorcycle, and faster than anyone in history ever has been. I don't have to beat the person on the drag strip next to me or on the race course next to me. I have to beat history. So this Run What You Brung, and there on my Honda VFR, and I went out and I took a pass at 152 miles an hour, and I came back and I gave the bike to my boyfriend at the time, who then became my husband, and he went out and did half a mile an hour faster, and I went out and did half a mile an hour faster, and we had just a great old time, and ultimately I was slightly faster. Women can do well in our sport because aerodynamics are an incredible part of the sport, as well as strength. So we can tend to potentially get a little bit smaller in an aerodynamic package. Of course, my colleagues who I race against are going to come yell at me about that. But we can often get a little bit smaller. But as soon as I did that Run What You Brung, I said, you know what, next year we're going to be back here and we're both going to be on race bikes. And that was about a dozen years ago or so, and we've been racing ever since then. And I've been progressively getting faster, and the faster I go, the faster I want to go. And I just feel very fortunate to be able to talk about the sport and have discovered it and learn it and love it.
Brilliant, great story as well, Erin. Thanks very much as well. Because one thing I might, before we move on to Kristen, I just might ask you as well about how you've combined that then with a career, with your career, which is also in itself has been a massive career path as well through that.
Well, thank you for that. And I think, again, it's about passion and spending your time where you want to spend your time. So I don't sleep very much, but I race motorcycles, and I'm fortunate to work for a company that believes in facilitating a whole person, and both employees and people that we help connect through the world. So, and that's not just a company line. That is, in fact, through the fabric of what Facebook does. Our mission is to make the world more open and connected. We want our employees to have full lives, so I don't have to slink off and not tell my bosses where I am or what I'm doing. I wear the fact that I'm a motorcycle racer in addition to being an executive very proudly, and I think one of the things that both passions have in common, and what facilitates my ability to do both of these things and put my whole heart into it, is I have amazing teams in both areas. So I have an amazing team in land speed motorcycle racing, and I have an amazing team in my career at Facebook, and without that I couldn't do it. But because of that, and because of the openness and the facilitation that my company allows me and in fact supports and encourages, which is, I think is a very important word in the whole topic of women in anything, is encouragement. I'm fortunate that I can do both.
Brilliant stuff. Thank you very much, Erin. And perhaps in that other world, we'll move on to Kristin alongside you there, who's from outside, I suppose, of the sphere of motorcycling. And could you just explain to us, Erin, maybe some people aren't aware, about what the Women's International Networking organisation is about a little bit, and what the aims are within that? I'm sure people like the women you've got alongside you on stage, the sort of people that you're dealing with.
So I started this organization in the late 90s, a little bit because I had worked in a multinational where we were not encouraged to be wholesome, let's say. And so let's say I grew up in Norway, and I traveled around the world, and I worked in Italy for a long time, and I was in a big American multinational. And as a young person at the time, I felt that it was very hierarchical, and I was thinking, couldn't it be different if we were all heard more? So the young people were heard, the older people, the women and the men. So it wasn't actually immediately about women only, but about how could we, I was questioning whether it was a possibility to create environments where more people could come alive and be wholesome. Then I traveled around the world doing consulting, and I was visiting countries where I saw women not having really choices. And I started to question also that, how lucky was I growing up on the west coast of Norway? I can travel the world, I can choose and pick, I have freedom of choice. I got my education, not because my parents were rich or not rich, but because I grew up in a country where everyone had that possibility. So I started to think, perhaps we can get a group of women together and men who are interested to look at how can we create more opportunities for more people around the globe. And also, how can we create workplaces where we can be ourselves, and as ourselves be more passionate and maybe even produce more for more in a better way. And that's sort of a third thing that was very important for me when I started, which is still important. And that is I simply love connecting with people, and many different people. So I started this event, which is based on the WIN conference, Women International Networking. Because today, as it was 20 years ago when I started, I thought, what can we do to empower, to develop, and to connect in order to actually create a world where more of us can be creative, where more of us can be in the flow, whether it's about driving fast or whether it's about becoming an artist or a good business person. So as a sort of an entrepreneur, I will say, I got together other people and we began this journey, which was about training, about development, but particularly about this annual conference, which today has brought together 13,000 women and men, where we look at stage like this, getting in the role models from 18 to 70 years old, mostly women, but also an increasing number of men. And on that journey, you sort of have to speed in some way, or at least you have to risk, because also anyone who ventures on something new today, whether it's about becoming the first woman in racing or entrepreneuring something, you have to venture out in a field where nobody else has been before. So you have to take a little bit of risk, and you have to connect with people.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Kristin. I'm sure we're going to revisit some of those topics as well as we go on, but we'll just hear from Amparo as well at the end. En castellano lo hacemos, ¿no, Amparo? ¿Qué prefieres? Pero si nos puedes explicar un poco cómo, bueno, hemos oído de deportistas aquí dentro del ámbito de motociclismo, pero en el negocio de motociclismo también hay muchas mujeres ahí. ¿Cómo has empezado? ¿Cómo es desarrollar tu carrera profesional dentro del negocio de motociclismo como una mujer?
Hola, primero de todo, siento cierta envidia por estas mujeres que no solamente se dedican al motociclismo de manera profesional, sino que lo practican. A mí me encantaría haber sido Ana en un momento dado, pero yo no tuve esa oportunidad o esa inquietud, a lo mejor, y mi conexión con el motociclismo empezó cuando entré a trabajar como secretaria de Carmelo Ezpeleta en Dorna, hace 25 años casi. Yo había trabajado en algunas otras empresas buscando siempre un proyecto que me diera un poco de atractivo y lo encontré en Dorna. Dorna en ese momento empezó a gestionar los derechos primero de televisión y después también comerciales del Campeonato del Mundo y estaba todo por hacer y fue maravilloso vivir todo eso desde el principio, desde los inicios. Eso también me da una perspectiva y un conocimiento muy profundo de todo lo que es desde ese momento, obviamente, el Campeonato del Mundo de Motociclismo y también, creo, del mundo del motociclismo en general, porque, como antes ha dicho Gavin, yo en este momento dirijo el FIM-moto Repsol, que ya no es Campeonato de España, pero lo ha sido, y dentro de que es un campeonato mucho más pequeño, no deja de ser un mundo lleno de oportunidades y un proyecto completo, maravilloso. Bueno, sobre mi carrera, que parece que es lo que aquí importa, que me sorprende y me siento un poco tímida con eso. Pues yo empecé con Carmelo, estuve con él 9 años de secretaria, una colaboración muy estrecha porque no eran tiempos fáciles, teníamos que plantarnos en muchos ámbitos. Llegó un momento en que Dorna creció mucho porque gestionaba muchas cosas dentro de los circuitos y entre él y yo hablamos de la conveniencia de crear un nuevo departamento, que era el departamento de eventos, que coordinara todos los departamentos de Dorna en los circuitos. Y Carmelo me encomendó a mí esa tarea, que me encantó. Lo realicé por 2 años, el segundo año embarazada. Yo era la primera que llegaba a los circuitos, la última que me iba de los circuitos, por lo menos una semana estaba allí. Y una vez tuve mis hijos, tuve 2, yo pensé, antes de tenerlos, yo pensé que iba a poder hacer la misma vida después de tener mis hijos. No tenía ninguna duda. Pero cuando tuve mis hijos me di cuenta que me era imposible. Yo no podía faltar de mi casa 20 semanas al año y tuve que tomar otra opción. Y me la ofrecieron en Dorna, que parece ser que no es algo tan normal que te pase. A mí me pasó y es maravilloso que te la ofrezcan, pero aunque me la ofrecieron, para mí ha sido muy duro no compaginar el trabajo de casa con el trabajo de la oficina, sino volver a encontrar mi sitio dentro de la empresa. No quiero decir que me lo pusieron difícil, quiero decir que para una mujer, entiendo yo, o por lo menos para mí lo fue, cuando es madre cambian muchas cosas. Te ves diferente frente a los demás y volver a encontrar tu posición y tu imagen es complicado. Pero yo lo he conseguido a base de mucha constancia, a base de mucho esfuerzo, de no rendirme jamás. Y es lo que le pido a las mujeres, siempre. Me da mucha rabia cuando las mujeres, por el hecho de tener hijos, se enquistan, se quedan en casa o simplemente intentan escurrir el bulto en las empresas y no dar todo. Yo, si en algo creo que puedo inspirar, es en eso, en no rendirse jamás y en no dar las cosas por perdidas. Creo que es lo que puedo decir.
Well, gracias, Amparo, por esta historia as well. I wonder if actually, Kristin, alongside, if that's something, you deal with a lot of people who've reached leadership roles and they've got there, and it is a topic to debate, isn't it, of women and having children, because it is it's something which is a hot topic anyway in the wider world of business.
Yeah, and you see different countries and different places organize it differently. But certainly, I think it's very, very important for everyone to know that it's possible to do both. Life, if we are lucky with good health, we can do many things at different stages. And now I see, let's say, the Scandinavian model is that women and men are sharing a lot of work. They're sharing a lot at home. You have very high employment rate amongst women. So that's one way. Other countries, you have more help at home. I work a lot in Japan, and I see they have a very clear division between women and men. So if you are working out in the professional life, many choose maybe not to have a family because it's so many hours that's required. And often the work on making it work to have family life is also a work alongside with how we can create a good sort of hours at work and work-life balance. So if the culture at your workplace is that of working 12, 14 hours a day, it's very difficult to combine with work life, with family life. But if there is some sort of more flexibility, and that's happening today with technology, maybe you can work a little more from home, be available, and talk about it, because ultimately it's very important for the entire society that we have families also. And when people choose not to have children, not to discriminate that either. So I think today we have all sort of possibilities, and we need to be inclusive on that and expect that it's possible, whatever choice we take, and not feel bad about which choice we have. But I think for women in particular that seem to take most of the responsibility for children, although there are a lot of great guys coming up being very much part of it, is to also stay within workplace, don't leave. Because I see women that have been out of the workplace very long, lose confidence, it's harder to come back. So I think it's very smart, even if it's part-time, if it's something, just have a foot inside so that it doesn't get so difficult to get back. But of course, you learn a lot having a family as well, boundary settings, and there are a lot of good things. So it's certainly an asset that we should bring along. And I think, you know, when you're recruiting two young people, a man and a woman, you know, some people, maybe she will have a child soon. But also, if you look at loyalties, you see men change work more often than women. So it could be that in 2 years she's having a baby, yeah, but it could be that in 2 years he's changing work. So we also have to look at all of these things. And I also see a lot of loyal parents who work with a very committed. So it's certainly not a problem, it's just an opportunity.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks very much, Christine. Sí, claro.
When they told me that to come to this conference, the first thing that came out to my head was, I will say that the most important thing for a woman to be okay in her job is to find the right person, the right partner at home. That's the main theme.
I want to sort of look at the sports side of things as well. We talked about women here having the career path and certain obstacles that come through. So maybe Erin, Martine, in terms of encouraging or making sure that women are taking part in sports and don't feel, I don't know whether there's a confidence thing, a self-doubt thing. What can we do? What can we improve? What can we do more, do you think, to make sure that women do have this belief? We've got great role models, as we've heard from people up here. So are there any ideas of things that we need to do better, we need to improve on?
I'll touch on a couple of things, and I think there are internal forces and there are external forces. And internal forces are just our own self-doubt can be a barrier. And I think that's true for men and women both. But fundamentally, you just need to kind of silence that inner voice, and certainly we all have it. And trying to find ways to kind of calm that your own internal voice of self-doubt. The other is encouraging one another and recognizing that some people, men, women, younger people, shyer people, may need a little bit more encouragement than others, and just whether that's pointing out to them that they're questioning their own abilities. If I were out there and I'm nervous and I'm saying, I don't know if I can hit 330 kilometers per hour on this particular pass, I'm nervous. If I have a partner with me who will remind me that I'm defeating myself in those types of statements, whether I say them out loud or I say them in my head, that's the type of encouragement that other people can give to me, or to, when you hear those bits of self-doubt, like I said, men, women, shyer people, younger people will throw those out. And we could say, yeah, you're right, you should be nervous, you're about to go 330 kilometers on a motorcycle, that's fast. Or we can say, no, you got this, you know how to do it, channel your inner strength and go for it. And that's the kind of thing that I think we can do for one another. And I don't know that we always remember to do that, but it would be helpful if we could just continue to pass that word. And it's sort of like what my parents did for me as a youngster. We can continue to do for one another in whatever capacity you are in another person's life, whether you're their coach, mentor, friend, family member, or a passerby who sees somebody kind of doubting themselves.
And I suppose you see that as much in business as in sport.
Oh, I certainly. Yeah, I think that's very true in life. I don't know that it's necessarily just sport, but certainly when it's probably, it might be required a little bit more when you're doing things that are a little out of the norm. So it might be a little more required if you're a woman in motorsports. I don't know, but I think absolutely that type of encouragement is important throughout everything that we do. It might just be more important or even more not top of mind, therefore we need to bring it top of mind when you have someone like my colleagues here who are doing, incredible things on motorcycles and in sport and on boats and all the crazy things that she's done in her amazing career. And I'm in awe sitting next to this woman, I must say.
Thank you very much, Sharon, as well. Yeah, Martine. So I'm sure things have changed since you first started. Are you involved in motorcycle sport and motorsport in general as well? So how can we draw more people in like Anna, more people into our sports? How can we, especially women, how can we attract women to be part of our sports? How can we encourage them that they can take part, and as we've seen, they can be amazing role models and stars and be successful?
Well, I should say that, first of all, you have to have no complex. No complex with all your environment. I mean, no complex when you're looking to younger people, to men, to nothing. And no inhibitions.
Do you mean on an individual level?
On an individual level. And the individual level is the most important thing. If you really want something, you want it, and you give everything you have to it. That's the main thing. You have to really want something, to be motivated, and to put all your being in this motivation. And if I can say something about myself, I, of course, had to work because racing at those times, the Middle Ages, you couldn't eat out of it. Mm. So I had to work, and I had very demanding works. In times I was working for high fashion, for Olympic Committee, and demanding in time. And then you have to make your choice, and to stick to your choice. I chose to work well, the most I could do, and I chose to also race. So I have to combine everything. And I had, and we all have to stick to it. And never have the doubt. Let's speak about motherhood, by instance. When you race, this is kind of risky. And I have never been able to resolve motherhood and my risk. And I choose my risk. And that was a choice. And I stick to it. And I think it's the same for when you have passion, when you really have passion, you move forward by your passion. And this is how you can combine things. And the passion can be in the race, and the passion can be in your work too. And one passion is not exclusive of others. You can have a passion for your husband, for instance. I mean, it's not exclusive, but you have to have it and stick to it.
Ana, hemos oído de ti que la pasión que tú tienes para llegar, que como tú te crees en ti mismo, pero tú has mencionado antes un poco el invertimiento que esto quiere decir, sponsors, patrocinadores, este tipo de cosas. Hay que hacer también a la gente creer en ti, ¿no? Que esto también es difícil.
Sí, hombre, está claro que el deporte siempre es difícil porque supone mucho esfuerzo, supone dedicar mucho tiempo y prácticamente dedicar tu vida a conseguir solo una cosa. Y también es difícil el poder asumir que por mucho que trabajes, es muy difícil que tener la recompensa. Casi siempre, aunque tú des el 100% y dediques tu vida a ser cada día mejor, no siempre tiene el resultado que te gustaría tener. Pero sí que, bueno, los medios económicos ayudan mucho. Al final, luchar contra algo que no puedes vencer es muy difícil. Creo que con el apoyo de las empresas deberían de intentar apoyar más a la gente joven, intentar creer en proyectos nuevos, como en este caso el mío. Creo que a día de hoy ya he demostrado en el Campeonato del Mundo que puedo estar a la altura. He conseguido una 8ª posición, 7ª posición en parrilla. Creo que es lo suficientemente como para que alguien apueste por este proyecto y me ayude a conseguir el objetivo, que es ser la primera mujer campeona del mundo. Creo que a día de hoy decirlo sí que suena como muy grande, pero bueno, poco a poco hemos ido venciendo obstáculos y seguramente con el apoyo de gente que me empuje y siga ayudándome, podremos conseguirlo.
Pero una cosa que ha dicho Martín antes, que ha sido que hay mucho del individual, y yo sé que tú lo tienes, la pasión y tal, que lo tienes que querer por mucho también, que tiene que salir de dentro, pero tiene que haber una semilla al principio, tiene que empezar en un momento de creer que puedes, ¿sabes? Tiene que haber un momento. Para ti, ¿qué fue esto que te ha hecho pensar, mira, que quiero llegar a este momento y lo puedo hacer? ¿Sabes? La inspiración un poco.
Sí, bueno, yo siempre, desde que empecé, para mí fue como un juego, un hobby. Cuando fui creciendo, sobre los 14 años o así, me di cuenta de que sí podría ser así. Durante toda mi vida he estado siempre en todos los campeonatos luchando por las posiciones delanteras. He sido de los pilotos más rápidos a nivel nacional, que es el campeonato más fuerte que hay dentro del motociclismo antes del Campeonato del Mundo. Y bueno, creo que ver que era capaz tan joven de estar a la altura del resto de pilotos me hizo ver que de verdad podía estar a la misma altura en el Campeonato del Mundo. Al final, teniendo los mismos medios, creo que puedo hacer lo mismo que cualquiera. Al final, yo no lucho por ser la mujer más rápida del mundo, quiero ser el piloto más rápido del mundo. Entonces, para eso hace falta muchos medios, porque estar en el Campeonato del Mundo, si no tienes el equipo que necesitas, la moto que necesitas, es muy difícil luchar contra eso. No puedes tener los mismos resultados que alguien que lo tiene. Creo que es muy importante que se apueste por formar a gente, pero también por apoyar a los que ya hemos llegado, que son muchos años de trabajo, y al final, cuando hay una mujer que puede hacerlo, una o sea yo o bien sea otra, que todo el mundo intente apoyar, porque al final yo creo que se puede conseguir. Yo lo creo y creo que mucha gente también lo cree. Al principio fue un poco difícil, pero ahora hay mucha gente que cree en el proyecto, que me ayuda cada día, y creo que sería muy bueno para todos que esto se pudiera conseguir.
Completely. I think everyone would agree with that as well, Anna. Just, Erin, I'd like to come back to you on that, where Anna's explaining there about financial, about that side of things. That we know motorcycling in general is quite an expensive sport. Do you have any experience of sponsorships, people who've helped out, people who've helped support you, and how you convince people to get? I know it's not easy, I know nothing. So, I don't know if you've got any experiences of having found that, maybe Martina as well. I don't know whether that's something that you can share with people at all.
I'll add some comments on that,
Yeah.
certainly. And I think it's interesting when you talk about goals, because the goals are incremental. You don't start out saying, or maybe you do, that I'm going to be the world champion. You start out by saying, I'm going to be the best at this particular, like my next race, my next class. In my case, it was in increments of miles per hour. I thought 180 miles per hour was fast, and then I thought 200 was fast, and now it's, it incrementally goes up. But I think ultimately, when you talk about sponsorship, it's incredibly difficult. I joke that, it's good to have friends with boats and wineries and race teams, because it's something you throw money into, it doesn't come back out. Any of those three: boats, wineries, race teams. So I have no magic tricks on sponsorships. In fact, it's very difficult. And in particular, there's something like land speed racing. It's not particularly a spectator sport, and we don't compete as often as some of the other disciplines within motorcycle racing. So what's been incredibly helpful is just continuing to try to do the best that you can do and then let others know about that and try to evangelize it. So I'm just trying to be the best in my sport, and I try to let others know what we're doing, and should they be interested in contributing to it, then wonderful.
How do you communicate that then?
The one thing, excuse me for one sec, but what has been the most beneficial for me, however, is realizing the contributions that may not necessarily be monetary that other people can provide. So I talked earlier about teamwork. I am a racer, but I'm not a mechanic. I know enough about the bike to be able to tell my team how it's behaving, but I have an incredible team behind me who do it out of the passion and their desire to be part of the team. So they contribute their time, their energy, their expertise beyond just money. It's very much a team orientation, and if someone knows more about aerodynamics and they can help us out, they will. I've had people loan us leathers on the Salt. I've had people loan us motorcycles on the Salt. I've had people who, out of the goodness of their heart, will cover an accomplishment that me or my team has done because they want to write the article, not because I'm commissioning them to do it. So there's and I think in our sport of motorcycling overall, you do attract people who are passionate and have skills and realize that they might be able to add something to your team, and that may or may not be money. It might be their skills, and that's been incredibly helpful for me, and I'm very grateful for it.
Okay. Martin, it looked like you were going to...
Well, I should say that because of the women conference, in my times, rarity attracts attention. And I think I have had the benefit of being a woman. And let me give you 2 examples. For the first Paris-Dakar, I had no money, nothing. My enduro bike, that's all. I called an old acquaintance from the rally time, Jean-François Piot, who happened to be the director of racing at Honda. And I knew he had a factory team. And I said, hello, Jean-François, that's me. He knew about a little my achievements in enduro. Would you have a spare bike for me? And maybe 3 days afterwards, he thought about. He said, okay, I'm taking you with me. So the 2 male pilots team, Honda, became 3 pilots, boys and girls. And this was the first Paris-Dakar. Nobody knew anything about it, even the Honda official team. We only had 1 spare engine for 3 bikes in the service cars. I was the first to break my engine, sorry. He gave it to me. I mean, the 2 boys, if they broke their engine, finished. I had the engine, and I won the race. I won the ladies' cup, but I was 11th out of 300 bikes. So that wasn't, he believed in a woman. And afterwards, I was taken by Jean-Claude Olivier in the Yamaha team. And Jean-Claude, all before the Paris-Dakar and the Enduros, prepared my bikes. And there was no difference. I felt absolutely no difference between me and the boys. And I have my own mechanics. I was really treated like the others. And I'm so reconnaissant for that.
Yeah. I just wonder, Amparo, si volvemos contigo dentro del motociclismo y todo el ámbito, por ejemplo, a lo mejor en el campeonato junior del mundo, proyectos, esquemas, cosas que se está intentando hacer para inspirar, para tener a chicas jóvenes, para entrar dentro de este mundo, no solo como pilotos, pero también como ingenieras, como mecánicas, como en cualquier parte, si sea media, sea en una organización como tú.
Realmente la organización del FIM Repsol no está enfocada a propiciar que las mujeres estén presentes, pero de hecho están muy presentes. En la organización hay mecánicas, hay telemétricas, hay pilotos. No tienen ninguna diferencia con respecto a los hombres en cuanto a consideración. Otra cosa son las consideraciones personales de los propios equipos o personas que trabajan, que puedan tener más o menos prejuicios, pero sinceramente creo que en el CEP no es muy habitual. Es más, Repsol, que es el sponsor de este campeonato, está siempre muy pendiente de hacer iniciativas para que mujeres puedan tener acceso al CEF. El CEF es un campeonato muy abierto, donde el acceso es libre al paddock y gratuito, donde los pilotos encuentran, creo yo, Ana, corrígeme si me equivoco, una familia profesional, pero muy dedicada a lo que tienen que hacer, que es aprender a ser pilotos para ir al campeonato del mundo. Y yo creo que no hay diferencias entre hombres y mujeres en este campeonato. ¿Tú las has visto, Ana?
Sí, yo creo que el Campeonato de España es la mejor escuela que puedes tener antes de ir al Campeonato del Mundo. Nunca he encontrado ninguna diferencia, al contrario. Sobre todo la gente que trabaja, al igual que en el Campeonato del Mundo, siempre tu equipo intenta darte lo mejor. Y bueno, sí que yo personalmente he encontrado mi equipo, mi familia, por así decirlo, en las carreras. Siempre intentan dar el 100% para que salga lo mejor posible. Y creo que esto está muy bien que se enseñe en el Campeonato de España, porque a la hora de ir al Campeonato del Mundo siendo tan joven es mucho más fácil si tienes a la gente adecuada a tu alrededor.
Sí que es verdad que yo he notado que las pilotos que han salido del CEF, Ana en su día, Elena Rosell también, María, quizás hayan sentido más presión. Y más presión para pasar al Mundial y más presión durante su participación en el CEF y luego en el Mundial. Pero creo que es algo difícilmente evitable. Es la expectación que generan y también creo que, en cierto modo, esa es también una discriminación positiva.
Es otra barrera a romper, ¿no? ¿Perdón? Es otra barrera a romperse.
Sí, exactamente. Cuanto más frecuente sea la participación de mujeres, menos expectativas habrá sobre si pueden o no pueden llegar a ser pilotos al nivel del resto, que no tengo ninguna duda que lo pueden ser.
Kristin, you've heard people talk about the motorcycling. Kristin, can you hear me? Okay. You've heard people talk about the motorcycling world. So there's something that we can learn from the professional world as well. I mentioned whether there were project schemes. Should that sort of thing be in place to bring women into our sports? Or should it be something that the women who are already in those sports are encouraging other people to do, rather than it being an active, not positive discrimination, I'm not talking about that, but should there be... there obviously should be plans in place in some. Is there anything we can learn from the professional world, perhaps?
I think worldwide right now there's a sort of a rising of women. I mean, from Nigeria to Sweden, so to speak, it's all over the place in any sphere. But I think what you can see in many companies now, there is organized projects on diversity and inclusion, how to get your group more diverse, how to include. So there are programs to follow, and the same certain nation states are doing things to encourage more women. And I think that there's also a responsibility on the women, because both women and men, let's say, we can sit with certain mental opinions about others, etc., which is often formed by or traditions, even by the media. And it doesn't only impact on the men. So it's also very important for all of us women, too, to be aware of our own biases and how we are thinking about people. And when we are in areas where there are very few women, that we particularly encourage that to happen, so that it will be easier for the next generation. And because the first ones will always be paving the way and need even more confidence. Maybe some just born that way and you go for it. But a lot of people need a little extra support. But the more, I mean, the responsibility to Anna, 18 years old and very visible. I mean, you are a role model for your whole generation, you know, and it's a lot. And we should really support her and give her the visibility, because maybe she inspires someone that is not necessarily going into riding, but doing something else too. But, oh, it's possible to sort of go in and do things that hasn't been done before. But I think that each and every one of us need to be very aware of how we are judging things or biases, and become aware of our unconscious biases too that is popping up at times. And what we read in the media is not always the truth, so we have to be aware of it from many angles.
Working in the media, I agree. A lot of it sometimes isn't. We've got about just over 10 minutes to go. We've heard some fascinating things. Do we have any comments perhaps from people in the room, in the auditorium at all? Anyone got anything they'd like to add, or even ask perhaps of any of our panelists? Up there, not got anything at the moment. I can see a hand. If you could just get a microphone, is that possible? If we could just grab a microphone and we can hear a couple, because we've got about, as I say, about 10 minutes or so left in, and it might be quite nice to hear from some of the people out here. Just in here, if we can. Thanks.
Thank you. My name is Tanya Lawrence. I'm the president of Motorcycling Australia. I'm so inspired. I've got goosebumps listening to you ladies talking. But I have a particular question, I suppose, in terms of role models. Certainly for me, growing up, I didn't have any role models, women role models. So I didn't believe that there was a future in motorcycling for me. So I gave it a go, but I never gave it enough of a go because I just didn't think that I could. And I just wonder, how much pressure would it be on you, and what can we ask of you to be more visible? You know, Anna, particularly, you know, you're a professional motorcyclist, you're busy, you're trying to win, but what can we do to ask of you to be more of a role model for children around the world? And ditto with Martine and Aaron, you know, you guys are just legends, and how much can we ask of you to be more of the face, more intimately with young girls around the world?
Bueno, yo creo que sí que hay mucha más presión que cualquier hombre, porque más que nada porque es la novedad. Si solo corre una mujer y 30 hombres, lo normal es que todo el mundo esté más pendiente de los resultados de esa mujer. Creo que muchas veces sí que hay demasiada presión, pero al final, si quieres estar en un campeonato a nivel mundial, tienes que aprender a convivir con ello. Creo que yo por lo menos siempre intento dar el 100%, intento que la gente que trabaja conmigo lo dé. Y bueno, sí que entiendo que la gente me lo pida, que quiera que dé el 100%, pero por ese lado yo siempre lo doy. Cada día me levanto, trabajo para ser cada día mejor, y cuando voy a las carreras intento hacer todo lo que puedo y más por conseguir que los resultados salgan. Así que al final es lo único que puedo hacer. Sí que entiendo que al estar en un campeonato tan visible, muchas niñas intenten seguir este camino o tener un poco de referencia, pero al final creo que la única referencia es intentar dar siempre lo mejor de ti, y bueno, si alguien se fija en ello está muy bien, porque creo que es positivo para que todo el mundo lo haga siempre y dé su 100% en su trabajo, en su deporte o en cualquier cosa que quiera en la vida.
Erin, Martine, have you got anything to add there?
I just want to add, I think you mentioned,
Oh,
I think you said that you...
is the microphone okay? Is it on?
Oh, hello.
There we are.
I think you said that you didn't race. You still can ride and should. I'll just speak for myself. Ask a lot of me, of us, and it's our responsibility to just keep focused on our number one goal, which for me happens to be land speed racing. But when I am asked to do other things that might be helpful for others, it's a reminder to me that I should do that, and ultimately I want to do that. Because if I'm not reminded of it, I will just be very laser focused on racing, because that is my extreme passion. I like when I see, if I'm just riding around the country and I see a little girl who's looking at me a little bit kind of funny because she's not used to maybe seeing a woman dressed in full leather about to get on a big fully loaded GSW with bags and all the rest of it. And I actually, and I'm doing my thing and I'm getting ready to ride, so I might ignore her. And then I realize, no, I don't want to do that. I want to just kind of see if I can spark in her that maybe she wants to come over and sit on the bike. And some will, and I do that with the little boys as well. Some will like freak out and run back to mom like, no, I don't want to go anywhere near that big scary thing. Others will light up and be like, oh, wow, I could actually sit on that. And like, if I push the button, I can start it. And it's just maybe that little bit of reminding us that if we do those little things, you might be able to help the next generation and you might encourage them. And I would ask you to ask a lot of me because I want to be reminded that it's important. So please do that.
Martin, have you got anything to add? Martin's microphone?
It works? Yeah. I fully agree with both my colleagues, Anna and Erin. First, you have to do your best. You won't ever be forgiven if probably if you're a boy or a woman. If in this kind of activity, which I mean racing means that you want to be the best. If you don't want to be the best, you just don't race. And if you want to be the best, you have to do your best. That's the first thing with Anna. And now about what Erin said, I think to inspire people, you have to be reachable. It's not only to be, I mean, when I said that we are, as women, more visible, that's not enough. We don't have to be only visible. Of course we are. But we have to be reachable. And we have to show that we are people like the others. We're not just what Erin described with our helm, our thing, our leathers, our everything. We have to be reachable and be able to explain and maybe to be close to people, close to the press. This is very important. What I could see in my career of people, relationships of racers and the press, you just wonder what they want out of the press. You have to talk. You have to be yourself in that kind. You have to be yourself in the best, but also yourself with other people. That's what you are. You're like the others. And if other people feel that, then they can rely on you. And maybe that can be inspiring.
What I'm hearing as well on here is you've all got to amazing positions in your lives, but that serves an inspiration, but it's also a huge responsibility at the same time to pass that on, to make sure other people are aware and other women are aware that these sorts of things are possible, that you can get to this kind of position. So, yeah, it's a hard role to play as well. There was another question, I think, just at the back there. If we could just have that. We've got about 5 minutes to go, less than 5 minutes, so we'll make it quite short if we can. Thank you.
Solo un minuto en relación con la financiación. Por nuestra experiencia, hay dos aspectos que tradicionalmente los deportistas no tienen en cuenta, que son qué quiere el patrocinador del deportista. Antiguamente lo que quería era incluir su marca en el mono, en el casco, en la moto o en una valla publicitaria. Pero ahora quiere mucho más. Quiere que el deportista forme parte del objetivo de la empresa. Aquí hablamos de inspiración para que los jóvenes tengan alguien en quien buscar un modelo. Yo creo que los deportistas, Ana, y te lo digo a ti directamente, tenéis que ser conscientes de que tenéis que formar parte de las empresas que quieren patrocinaros. Tenéis que incluir en vuestra vida no solo la etiqueta de la empresa que financia vuestro proyecto, sino que tenéis que hacer propio el proyecto de la empresa. Un ejemplo muy claro en España con balonmano. No tenían dinero para que la selección femenina, las guerreras, pudieran competir en el Campeonato del Mundo. Y Correos, que es una empresa pública, aunque parcialmente privatizada, tenía un problema interno desde el punto de vista laboral gravísimo, de manera que no tenían dinero para poder patrocinar ningún deporte. Consiguieron que Correos pusiera dinero para patrocinar a las mujeres guerreras porque los trabajadores de Correos se sintieron que formaban parte del equipo femenino de balonmano y las jugadoras de balonmano hicieron que los problemas laborales de los trabajadores de Correos fueran su problema. En la actualidad, los trabajadores de Correos van a las competiciones de esas jugadoras vestidos ellos con la marca de la empresa donde están trabajando y tenían un problema laboral grave. Y una segunda cuestión, la pena no vende. La tristeza, el no poder conseguir las cosas, no vende a las empresas. Sirve para que te atiendan la primera vez, pero la segunda vez que señalas no puedo porque no me ayudan, ese día se olvidan de ti porque la pena cansa. El deporte transmite elementos positivos que creo que hay que explotar fuera de los cauces tradicionales. No solo puedes conseguirlo, Ana, tienes que convencerles de que eres la mejor para su empresa a través de lo que haces. Y yo estoy convencida de que si eso es así, comprarán tu producto, que no solo es que vayas encima de una moto, sino lo que haces, cómo lo transmites, cómo consigues que esa empresa vaya en la moto contigo y tú vayas con esa empresa difundiendo los valores que tú como deportista incorporas a tu modo de ser. Creo que el patrocinio hay que concebirlo mucho más allá del marketing tradicional.
Muchas gracias. Thank you very much for that input as well. From Anna there. We've only got about a minute to go left on this one, so we're probably going to have to call it a day on that as well. So I think we'll leave it there. Ana, si quiere contestar o no, o si está bien, ¿no?
No, sí, al final casi todo lo que ha dicho tiene razón, pero sí que muchas veces es muy difícil acceder a esas empresas. He hablado con muchísimas empresas, se lo he intentado vender de muchísimas formas y no es tan fácil como parece.
Yeah.
Al final, muchas de ellas, y sobre todo me ha pasado muchas veces, estando en cargos de marketing mujeres, tampoco han creído en el proyecto. Entonces, sí que tiene mucha razón, que hay que venderlo de una manera como ella ha dicho, pero no siempre funciona y no siempre las empresas apuestan por proyectos así.
Thank you very much, Anna. Thank you as well. I think basically if we could have a round of applause first of all for all our panelists up here, all in their own right inspirations to people. Thank you, Anna, Martine, Erin, Kristin and Amparo. Thank you for everything over the last hour and a quarter. I'm sorry we haven't had more time. I'm sure we could go on for another hour and a quarter if we could, but I'm sure there's a chance over the lunch break now that we can take. You can maybe speak to, I'm sure you're going to be around as well, and maybe if you have anything you want to speak on a more personal basis, that could be a case. But I have to say, from my point of view, truly inspirational stories across the board from everyone up on the stage as well. And yeah, I think what came out of this is the inspiration is there to other women to be able to get into your positions, but your responsibilities as well of disseminating that and communicating that to people. And hopefully this has been one format, at least, of communicating some of that inspiration as well. So thank you very much for that. Thank you all. Please enjoy your lunch. And we will be back up here with the final plenary session, which will be on preserving the world for future generations, women as role models and sustainability at all levels, and inspiring young people to make a difference as well, educating and involving young generations, grassroots at the level of sport as well. So hopefully we'll have a nice full conference room for that later on. But in the meantime, please enjoy your lunch. We hope to see you back here soon. Thank you very much. Another round of applause, please, for everyone up here.